welcome to Death Row.
Like we always do about this time.
I'm gonna fight your fucking ass!
You're playing touch butt with that dork in the park.
There's a little snake in the grass.
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
No fucking Jesus, people!
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I'm back.
Who the fuck is that guy? Break out the red panties. We're rich, baby.
I would like to introduce...
This is the MMAforMoney Show, Episode 7. This is your favorite garbage man, the MMA State of Mind, Bob Voss, with my amazing new animated graphic that you will enjoy for both my profile picture, avatar, all that stuff. I don't think I mentioned that last week, but we got some new artwork done, making us all look all professional and nice. And the other one you may have seen is from at Don't Cope Just Win, Mike Copenhaver himself, who's also running the main MMAforMoney Twitter account, so you can see all of our nice animations. Mike, how do you feel about your animation? Do you think it looks like you?
Oh man, they did an incredible job portraying me. I couldn't have done it any better.
I completely agree. The only thing I disagree with, and it's only because this time of year, because as my name would imply, I am a garbage man. I work outside, so for these couple months a year, to help with the cold, I have a beard. But I started growing it after we had to take these pictures for this animation, and it was before I even started growing it. So just in the 6 weeks or so, I started growing it about a month ago, and it came in nice and fast. So that is the only reason it's not looking like me. When this comes off post-winter, it'll just be right there like looking in the mirror again. So got my nice little whites in my beard, make myself look about 10 years older now, shave that off, and I'll look nice and young, just like in that picture. It also gives you guys something nice to look at. If you watching this on YouTube, you will have the nice animation on there while we wait to get on iTunes. We are close. This is episode 7, only a couple more to go. Now we are going to recap UFC Singapore and a little bit of Bellator 232. We had an amazing night, but before all of that, I want to give you the epic breakdown that the entire MMAforMoney team had over the weekend. Now, we're going to talk about MMA, because obviously this is an MMA-based show. So even just outside the show, we had MMA Gangster, who's a team member. He posted a free pick on Twitter that also linked to his article from the site. He had Benil Dariush in the distance at plus 200, and he had a unit of that, so plus 2. So we got plus 2 units right there for him. Then, between me and Mike's picks, we'll get into the details of that later. That's another 4 units. So just on MMA there, you had plus 6 units for the weekend. That's already a good weekend. Then, on Saturday, we had a plus 1540 NASCAR winner. Then on Sunday, we had a 2-unit bet on a plus 590 winner. Then, throughout the NFL, over the weekend, we went 4-2 for a plus 2.7 units. Now, you don't have to calculate all that. We already took care of that for you. So for the whole weekend, we had plus 33.2 units. Now, that is a ridiculous number. Some people don't make that much in a year of betting. This was in one weekend. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Some of this stuff is behind a membership package, a premium package there on the site. That's the NFL, that's the NASCAR, that's the stuff like that. And just when you see big numbers like this, it is well worth it. But we're also giving out that free content and the free plays between MMA Gangster earlier and us. That's already just plus 6 units for you. So we're making you money in all facets, even outside of MMA. But now going back to MMA, because obviously that is where we shine. That is our area, and we had a fantastic weekend. We're going to start talking about that by the first fight on the UFC Singapore card we're going to cover. Loma Lubunmi, thinking I've spelled that right. Either way, might be a misprint, whatever. Minus 120 to win a unit cashes on what was a record-setting night of this podcast. She defeated Alexandra Albu by a split decision. I personally thought it was a clear 30-27 for her. I don't understand how Albu even could win one round, let alone two. But Mike, I'm going to throw this to you because this was your bet. This was your baby. As far as I could tell, she performed to a T how you called it. But I want to hear from you.
Yeah, well, she couldn't have performed any better. Her knees in the clinch her Muay Thai was amazing, and those knees in the clinch were really, really devastating. And Albu didn't really want any parts. She just seemed to have an answer for everything that Albu was thinking about throwing. So she just was a great chess player that night. For a debut fighter, she performed amazing versus someone that outsized her by a good margin. I can't wait to watch this girl, gather some more jiu-jitsu and some more MMA knowledge and go on, a good little run. She seems to have the potential that I saw in tape study, and it came out in the fight. And I couldn't be more proud when I pick a fight for you guys and then they cash because we're a team and we're here to just make you guys money.
Oh, absolutely. And she really came through, and I agree. I mean, I'm excited to see where she goes from here. I mean, the division for the most part is wide open. Like you said, she's a little undersized, but still, it's going to be entertaining. She's going to be able to style in quite a few people with just superior striking. Now, speaking of striking, we're going to talk about Muslim Salikov, Mr. King of Kung Fu himself. He styled on the great Argentinian hope Loreno Staropoli to a lopsided decision filled with spinning attacks. And if what I read correctly, he set a record number of spinning attacks just in the first round. So he is as advertised. Obviously, it wasn't against the biggest opposition, but he had a dominant win with actually having 10-8s in there. And I don't know, man. Dude's all action, and I mean, provided he stays away from some powerhouse wrestler, man, he's gonna put a show on for you guys. Mike, how'd you feel about the King of Kung Fu and the downfall of the Argentinians, Tripoli?
Well, I thought we called it. We knew Muslim was gonna shine here, and he did exactly that for 3 rounds. And Stropoli had no business in there with him.
Sorry, just checking on a pronunciation there, because bear with me. One of the dialects, some names I have issue with is on the French side. So I'm not sure if this is Cyril Gane or Cyril Gane. I'm going to go with Gane because it sounds right, it feels right. But you know what? I'm going to start, I've changed this. I'm going to start calling this guy the serial killer. He had a dominant fight-ending finish in the end of round 3 with 15 seconds left. He got a heel hook submission. Now, this is a guy who, before he debuted in the UFC, was about to go fight for Glory kickboxing, and he gets a heel hook submission over Dante Mays. This guy looks like the total package. He had some body kicks that sounded like someone was getting hit with a bat, and he ends it with submission. I mean, I can't wait to see where this guy goes. I'm really excited about him. I mean, this is a true prospect. Like, I'm really excited to see where this guy goes from here. He seems to have check all the boxes, and even though this went 3 rounds, like, he seemed to have the gas throughout. So I guess I can't wait to see him go against slightly better competition, just to see him tested. I mean, how do you feel about our serial killer here?
Well, I think you called it to a T. Then you had him in the spot where he was going to shine, and he did exactly that. I couldn't believe that he pulled off that 3rd round submission. It was probably the least likely thing that I thought was going to happen, especially so late into the rounds. And it's just impressive. And like you said, those body kicks, they sounded like a baseball bat was just breaking someone's ribs. So I would never want to be hit with one of those.
Well, and then Mike, this is more question from you because obviously I know you train BJJ. So you're in the 3rd round. Both guys are sweaty as all get out. Does it just make it that much more impressive that he was able to get a heel hook grabbing on May's, I would only imagine, unbelievably sweaty leg?
Oh yeah, it's much more impressive. That's the likelihood it goes down greatly, especially the later in the rounds it gets and the sweatier it gets. So it's just it amazes me anytime someone gets a submission like that, especially our boy we're going to talk a little bit down the road.
Now Benny Dariush latched up an early rear naked choke over Mr. Nice Guy Frank Camacho. Stitch back to the previous show if you didn't listen to it. And he cashed a play given out by our own MMA Gangster, who had his article and his pick. We mentioned it earlier. Dariush in the distance at plus 200. He had a unit on that, which cashed with the quickness. Dariush got in there fast, man. He transitioned beautifully, and he got the choke. I'm excited to see this. I'm excited to see Dariush go back to jiu-jitsu. He fell in love with his striking so much, but his real talent is on the ground. I'm happy to see him go there. It's definitely going to make his career last longer in the UFC. And I mean, we pretty much called that he was going to have this edge. It's just, was he going to stand and strike, or was he actually going to go for it? And that's where we differed on if we thought he was going to win or not. But I'm just happy to see him go to the ground and actually show what he has. So, like, how beautiful was that rear naked choke?
It was gorgeous. I mean, I've always known that Beneil Dariush's jiu-jitsu was a top shelf. It's just he just hit or miss a lot of the times. So in this situation, with Camacho being from Guam, I was gonna back him no matter what. So that was one of the times where you definitely don't want to listen to me when my heart's in it. So, but Beneil Dariush performed amazing. Hopefully, he just sticks to that grappling, because that's where he does have a clear advantage.
Michael Johnson, the big letdown at lightweight. I mean, at least to me, I had high hopes for this guy. Found a way to lose to Stevie Ray, who I just thought he had every single advantage against, and was I think the biggest favorite on the card to beat. Maybe I think Gane might have been bigger at some points, depending how the bets went. He lost a 29-28 decision in a lackluster performance from both. I mean, that's all I'm really going to say about this fight, because every time I see Michael Johnson fight and he doesn't live up to what I know he can do, it's just depressing for me. So I usually like to move on. So if you do you have anything pressing to say about this fight, or should we move on to the main event? Yeah, again, this was the co-main event of this card.
No, we said it was going to be garbage last week.
Yeah, so if you listened to us before, you may have skipped ahead, or at very least stayed away from Michael Johnson. I still saw some people parlaying Johnson up, which I don't know where they got the confidence, but it bit him there. Now, although acquitting himself well in the early goings of the fight, arguably winning both rounds, I for sure gave one to him. I would need to rewatch it to see if I would give him both, but for sure I gave him one. Ben Askren found himself in a one-arm rear naked choke by the bastion of Brazilian middle age, Damian Maia, giving Askren his second finished loss in as many fights. I completely backed away from this fight when we talked about it. Like, if you listen to the last show, I basically, if this was a meal, I was pushing my food away. I had no opinion, because I did not even tell where Askren was at this point. I hadn't seen him against the appropriate competition. Didn't know if he had any kind of acumen to be able to handle himself. Damian Maia showed up big. His striking was cleaner. He got Ben Askren feeling froggy and safe because he was able to win a few transitions, but he ultimately got the choke. Now, I want to give all due credit to you, because this was one of your early choices for the pick before you ended up going with Loma, which still cashed, by the way. But Maia being the underdog, I know he is one of your favorite fighters, and I know that you were calling him big in this fight. So by all means, glow on your boy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I love Damian Maia so much that I named my firstborn son after him. So I'll give it to Ben Askren, though. He had me scared. Well, he performed pretty good for the first couple rounds. I mean, even in the third, his takedowns were pretty impressive. I mean, they're not the prettiest, but he gets them done. But the thing that bit him was, excuse me, that Damian Maia's ground game is so superior that it's like, oh, cool, you want to take me down? Now you're in my world. And so then once Askren got him down, Damian didn't even care, because he was going to reverse him, or he was going to change the position. And so that one-armed rear naked choke was just sick in round 3. I was up and screaming, and just, oh man, I was obviously mad at myself for not picking him as the best for the show, but I at least told you guys that where my head was at, and he did exactly what I thought. Well, he was going to finish Ben Askren.
Oh, you don't feel bad about not giving his pick for the show because your pick still won. It'd be one thing if you switched to somebody else and they didn't win, but still making money for people. So, and obviously, as you guys listen to this show, you'll obviously be able to see the way that we're leaning as much as we can. We'll even tell you the fighter we're picking, even if it's not necessarily a bet. So if that backs up your own personal confidence or you have a certain take a certain way and we're kind of echoing it, I mean, it's still personal betting. You could do whatever you want. We'll give official picks, but if you really like our take on it and you like our fervor for a certain fighter, by all means, that is 100% up to you if you want to keep going. Mike almost convinced me to put money on it, and I was trying to push away from the fight as best I can because, like I said, I had no idea we're asking for that. But now what capped off our big night, at least on Saturday, and I say night even though all the Singapore fights were crazy early in the morning, Bellator 232 also happened that night. We're not going to talk about Bellator 231, which was the night before that, because we're just not going to talk about that. We'll eventually start doing some Bellator shows to add in some episodes here and content for you guys. But at least as of right now, we're going to talk about one single fight from Bellator 232. And that was our first max bet on this show ever. It actually works out to just be slightly under that, maybe even more slightly under, depending on the number you guys got. But Douglas Lima cashes it. We had to win 3 units for minus 165. That's where we got it at. That worked out to be just under 5 units, as opposed to when we gave it out to you, it was minus 160. So you actually got the better number. But he easily stuffed numerous takedowns from Rory Mack. He landed more frequently with more power. He didn't land as many as the leg kicks as we thought, but they were still there, and they actually still neutralized a lot of what Rory was doing, but he didn't even need to use it as much because his takedown defense was so stellar. And as we brought up, with all the things going on in Rory's head, just so many things were on Lima's side, and it wasn't even close. I mean, the official decision was 49-46, but I mean, that's all depending how you judge. But it was a clear win for Douglas Lima. Dude wins $1 million over it, wins us a great amount of money as well. So, I mean, all due respect to Douglas Lima. So happy he's finally getting the credit he's due. And, man, thank you for the money. Now, Mike, how did you feel about Lima, dude? How did you feel about it? Like, were you as pumped as I was when that went on?
Oh man, I was so pumped, dude. This made my whole entire night. I mean, we were moving into a new house, and I've been working 6 days out of 7, and this capped off my night and made everything okay. I just want to win for you guys and for Bob and I to back a fighter and glow over him and gush over him, and to have Lima's back over Rory McDonald, one of the best welterweights, basically of all time, you could say, is a huge call. I know a lot of people that I told that we wanted to bet this fight. They were like, well, statistically, the rematch goes to the champion, or the same person who won the first. And I just, I don't go that way. The last fight, our guy had the more superior leg kicks, was the more dominant fighter, and he lost it somehow. This fight was clear. I couldn't believe how beautiful his takedown defense was. It was seriously gorgeous. He impresses me every single time he goes into the ring, octagon, cage, whatever. And I really want to see him in the UFC one day because he might be the best in the world.
Yeah, a quick note on that before. I'm gonna quick talk about our full results as our show. But I saw an article that I guess it was a statement someone tweeted out today that I almost couldn't handle it. Said that Douglas Lima has forever been in his brother's shadow because his brother's in the UFC. And
oh wow,
I had to respond to the guy because I'm like, this is the worst take I have ever seen. His brother has always been in Douglas's shadow back when they were still in the MFC. Like, he happened to get in the UFC. I would have to look back at it. I'll send it to you when I find it. But I'm like, I was dumbfounded and just had to let him know that was probably the worst take I had ever seen. But going to a happier note. So overall in the event as a show, so obviously we have MMA Gangsters win, but that's not part of the show. That's the team as a total. But I want to give you how this show is doing. The thing you're listening to, watching right now. We had a +4 unit night, and that leaves our total as a show to +2.8 units. So obviously it depends what your unit size is, but just to make it simple, say it's $100 a unit. You're at $280 right now, just tailing us. And this is early on in the show, and we hope to build off this. And we actually have some big bets for this upcoming fight card. We got a new lease on life, a new confidence, and some plays we really, really like. Sometimes it's hard to find really, really good spots on these smaller cards, this UFC Singapore card. So like kudos to Mike who found Loma for you guys. I had to jump to Bellator, their biggest welterweight fight of the year, to find one where I had confidence enough in. But we have some guys that we know really, really well that we're super confident coming up here for UFC 244 that we're going to be breaking down in just a second. But I'm just quick do a little bit of news and announcements. Just one thing. The only reason I'm bringing it up is because it actually seems like it's going to happen. There's a date for it. And in my opinion, this is the leading contender to get the spot. So love him or hate him, whatever he's going through, whatever legal process he's going to. So whatever this happens or not, soft announcement of McGregor coming back in January 18th. To be exact, and they've been talking about how Cerrone and Gaethje is the front runner, where it's almost looking more and more like it's Cerrone, which I can completely get behind and understand, because I can only assume if I'm the UFC, you keep Gaethje on the sidelines for when they make Tony versus Khabib in case someone falls out. This way you got Cerrone versus McGregor. It's a winnable fight with McGregor. I'm not saying it's a go-to that he's going to win, but Cerrone never does well against southpaws with power, especially if they rush him. And as much as McGregor is somewhat of a counter striker, he leads you into that with his kicks, and he does put on pressure, especially for that first round. He's the best he ever is in the first to second round of a fight, and Cerrone is the worst he ever is in the first to second round of a fight. So how do you feel about this matchup? I know it's not 100% signed, sealed, and delivered, but I'm going to act, at least for this show, like it is.
Well, I think this is a very easy, this is a very winnable fight for Conor McGregor. I think the UFC loves making money off their cash cow. So this is a spot where they have two guys that have helped them make money for a long time. There's one to me who's the clear-cut winner, and that's Conor McGregor, because he helps co-promote the show sometimes, I guess, somehow getting his own business name in there. So I think that Conor McGregor could win this fight. Cowboy has trouble with southpaws, like you said, and he also just doesn't like damage, especially to the body, when Conor knows that. And I could see Conor working the body really well, boxing, and then coming up high and doing some major damage with that left. So I would lean Conor McGregor pretty heavily. And so I'm stoked for that, but I really want is Justin Gaethje versus Conor, because that would be an easy win for me. I think Gaethje would smash him.
Well, my big question, like with Cowboy wanting this fight so bad, so if someone listening to this knows the particulars, feel free to tweet me or send me a DM or whatever like that at MMA State of Mind. Pay-per-view is different now since it streams on ESPN Plus. McGregor will likely negotiate to get some kind of money out of that. I don't know if this fight, this will probably more than likely be the main event. And I think the fight card we're about to talk about, Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal being able to headline a pay-per-view, especially if it does halfway decent, will re-show the UFC that they don't need a title fight on the top if the names are big enough. But Cerrone, unless he has something different in his contract that I know of, he doesn't get pay-per-view points. I know pay-per-view points are different now, like I said, because of the streaming. But he's just locked into the contract he's in. He's not making championship money. He's not making anything like that. So I don't understand why he wants to fight McGregor so bad. I get it's a bigger fight, but unless he's renegotiating or has a little bit of taste of the pay-per-views, which is not from what I've heard, I don't know why he's pushing this fight this bad, other than like a little bit more notoriety. But that's not going to see any more money his way. So I guess I'm like confusing the whole situation, because I always thought everyone wanted the counter fight because you're guaranteed a bigger purse, but that's not the case. It's like you're still doing what you have on your contract. Like Dustin Poirier didn't get life-changing money from fighting Conor McGregor. Dennis Seaver didn't get life-changing money. Eddie Alvarez didn't get life-changing money, because it's how the pay-per-view situation works. I don't know. Whatever. I'm going to move on because I'm just confused by the whole thing. I hope the fight gets made. It's as weird as it is, the sport's better when McGregor's winning, or at least fighting. And if he wins this fight, he'll stick around for at least a little bit longer. He has said that he wants to fight Cerrone, or whatever his next fight is, whether it might be Cerrone or Gaethje. Win that, in parentheses. I mean, Cerrone, I think he has a better chance than first Justin Gaethje. Then he wants to fight the winner of the main event that we're going to talk about later in this show. And then he wants to crack at whoever wins the title. So I guess that's his plan. I mean, he might have a chance to do the first two, but definitely not going to be the third. And honestly, after we talk about the main event later, I highly doubt it's going to be the winner of this fight either. But moving on to the first fight we're going to talk about, just a few news and notes about it. Corey Anderson, who's been slowly trying to make his claim to fight UFC Gold, and very much expressing how much he doesn't think the UFC likes him. Well, which is true. He wins somewhat boring but technical decisions, and only his entertaining fights when he gets knocked out clean. But he is currently a plus 135 underdog against Johnny Walker, who seems to be somewhat of a darling of the UFC. He's currently minus 155. My biggest two questions going into this fight, and then I guess I'll say who I'm picking in it, is Walker's shoulder status. Is his shoulder okay? He borderline dislocated it after his last victory dance, and from not that long ago still seemed like he was rehabbing it pretty well. So I'd be a little bit curious how that's doing. And then Corey's chin. It's been his biggest issue. If he had a stronger chin and maybe a little more power in his hands, he would be an amazing, amazing fighter. And I guess that's where I'm going with this. I would guarantee he probably does take Johnny Walker down at some point, but over the course of 3 rounds, I just can't. That there's going to be at least some opportunity for Johnny Walker to touch that chin and lay him out. So I have no bet on this fight regardless, because it very much could be a 3-round WrestleFest for Anderson. But in terms of a pick, and what I think will happen is at some point Johnny Walker will find that chin and he's going to get the finish here. Mike, how are you going with Corey Anderson versus Johnny Walker?
Well, it's a tough one, man. It's one of those situations where Corey's a little bit more of the OG veteran. He's been in there with a lot of the guys and has a lot of experience. But they're putting him up against UFC's little darling, like you said, their little lover boy, and they love this kid, and he's fun to watch. So my biggest question is, like you said, is his shoulder okay? I don't know, man. It's crazy to me that he fucking hurt it being a dumbass in the ring, doing the celebrating and doing the worm. I don't know if he's mature enough to make the right decisions at the right times. We still haven't really seen him tested versus someone with a lot of skill. So because of that, I would lay off this fight, and I wouldn't really bet anyone. I would. This is my fight to see where Johnny Walker is really at. If he knocks out Corey Anderson, like I think he should, then he's the real deal. But I need to see him tested with some takedown defense, and I also need to see him getting takedown and get back up, because that's just really important to me, especially when you see these devastating strikers, especially as they go up to the upper echelons of the sport. So I'm going to go with John. I would pick Johnny Walker. I think he can knock out Corey Anderson, but if he makes a couple bad decisions and gets taken down at the wrong times, he could lose the decision to Corey Anderson, because that's all Corey Anderson does. And so I'm just going to pick Johnny Walker because I want Johnny Walker to knock the shit out of Corey Anderson. But I think that this is a weird one.
No, I definitely agree there. A lot of X factors there. And I do agree at some point. I've kind of heard a few people bring up the fact that there's going to be a time to fade Johnny Walker. The hard part is I'm not sure it's here, because of Corey Anderson's chin. So it'll be interesting to see going forward because obviously Johnny Walker still has his faults. The dude does not have 0 losses, so there is a path to victory to beat him, and there's probably plenty in the division that can. Now, I'm going to push to the next fight. Now, this is going to be the first of 2 fairly big bets that we have on this card. Now, before I even give my take, I'm going to throw it to you, Mike, because I know this is your big bet of the card. And this is for the Gregor Gillespie, who's currently minus 175, versus Kevin Lee fight. Kevin Lee being plus 155. So, Mike, give me your breakdown, and I'll follow after.
Well, if anyone knows me, they know I'm super, super high on Gregor Gillespie. I've been a big fan even of his wrestling in college. He's amazing. His takedowns are just absolutely crisp. Everyone talked about Aaron Pico and Bellator and blah blah blah. Gregor Gillespie is UFC's Aaron Pico, but actually has a chin and some really good striking. I'm really, really high on this kid, and I think the UFC is really high on him as well. He was an NCAA D1 wrestler. He has wrestled against the best and competed against the best and won against the best. I think that his striking gets better and better. He hasn't shown me anything to not bet him. I think that Kevin Lee, who he's fighting, talks a lot of shit, and he was only a D2 wrestler, and I think that he is in for a real rude awakening versus this superior wrestler. So what we have here now is 2 wrestlers going to go at it. One superior, one not. All right, and I think that Gregor Gillespie can cancel out and or be greater than Kevin Lee. And then, so that makes Kevin Lee have to stand for all 3 rounds without the confidence of his wrestling. And he also has a chin issue. So I really, really, really like Gregor Gillespie in this position. I think his striking is super, super crisp. And I know his wrestling is super, super crisp. I think he can take down Kevin Lee at will anytime he wants in really, really impressive fashion. And I also think that he can knock out Kevin Lee. So I don't know if he's going to get a finish here, but I think that he can get an easy decision win versus Kevin Lee. So I'm going to throw down the second max bet of our podcast career, and I'm going to put 5 units down on Gregor Gillespie to win. What was the total, Bob?
2.95 units.
And so I just I hope you guys have as much faith in us as we do, because this is what we love to do.
No, I'm going to throw a little bit more information in there that might coax you people along into betting Gillespie, because if you can't tell, I am on a similar train. Honestly, if you go back when this fight was announced, I believe it's in the history of this show, maybe in one of our first episodes, we talked about the fight being made and how we were hoping and we were praying for a good Gregor Gillespie number. It's a little bit steeper than we thought, but you know what? I mean, everything still applies. And even more so, Lee's coming back down to 155, a weight class that he has semi-regularly missed weight at fighting. He recently went up to 170, got beat there. He actually got beat at 55 even before that. He perpetually thinks he's winning even when he's losing. And the only thing worse than that for him is when you shake his confidence. When you legit rock him, or in the case of this fight, like Mike has brought up, when you have someone who actually has better wrestling than you. Can Lee and his confidence handle it, the sheer shake of the fact that Gregor can possibly stop his takedowns, can possibly get his own takedowns, can further transition on the floor in advance, lay more hands. Like Lee, he has great offensive boxing. But similarly, he doesn't protect his chin. He's been put down a time or two, especially now after going up to 170, draining back down to 55. His chin is just going to be that much more susceptible. Again, like Mike, not saying Gillespie's going to get the finish. He might. He very well might. But man, Gillespie's going to take him down. And that's going to just shake his... If that happens in the first minute of the fight, Lee's done. He's just going to be shaking the rest... Oh, he's going to be so... He's shaking the rest of the fight. So, not meaning to completely push you guys in the corner and making you bet, but I completely second Mike here. I am also going to have a big bet on Gillespie, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a finish or finds a second or third round sub, because that's also something Kevin Lee likes to give up. Again, another person who's beyond talented but doesn't quite have what's going on in between the ears to actually bring everything together. The next fight, actually, I'll talk about for a brief moment before I throw it to Mike. I was leaning towards this one for a bet, but you know what? There's just a couple things keeping me away from it, at least to give out for a pick for the show, because the picks we give out on the show are our most confident picks for you guys. It's why we do it. We might have more bets beyond that, and that's what Twitter's for. You guys can check that all out. But our most confident bets will always be on the show. So that's what kept me from putting this next one on here. So Blagoy Ivanov, minus 125, is fighting Derek Lewis, plus 105. Now, I really like dog money on Derek Lewis. And this will be the first fight in a very long time. Derek Lewis actually has a functioning ACL. He finally got it taken care of. All those times you saw him get taken down, he literally just flopped to his back and laid on his back. Well, it's because he couldn't get up, because he had a torn ACL for all of those fights. But he just kept fighting and somehow finding a knockout. And I do think he has a good chance to do that here, because I don't think Ivanov is particularly fast. He's a little bit lumbering. He hasn't quite been the same guy since he almost died getting stabbed in the in the heart when he was still in Bellator. He's never been quite to that level, but he's also still really, really good for a heavyweight. And he's never been knocked out. Never. He has one submission loss, one decision loss. That's it. And the decision loss is to JDS, and the submission loss is to Alexander Volkov back when they were both in Bellator. And that was right after he came back from getting stabbed, if I recall correctly. I'm leaning Lewis here. I might eventually be a bet, but at least as of right now, this early in the week, I'm still too tentative on it to give it out to you guys. So my pick will be Lewis, but as of right now, no bet. Mike, how do you feel about this heavyweight fight here in New York?
I think it's going to be really entertaining. I love Derek Lewis. I think he's a great person. He's super funny, and he does a lot for his community when there's disasters and stuff like that. So I really do like the person. I'm stoked that he got his ACL fixed, and I can't wait to see him perform and to see him confident mentally and physically for the first time in a long time. I think that Derek Lewis is going to shine here. I think the UFC put him in a spot here where I think he can batter this older fighter. And I think that if the UFC is smart, that's what they need from him. So I'm going to pick Derek Lewis. I think that he can I think he could possibly finish up Blagoy Ivanov for the first time ever in his career.
Man, I wish I had that confidence in him. Maybe I will by the end of the week. Keep an eye on my or Mike's Twitter to see if that's something that gets added in later. We also try to share all the different team members' bets by retweeting them as best we can. So if you would even have followed just me or just Mike or just one of the people, you still would have seen MMA Gangster's article and pick go out, because we do our best to try to spread that along to all of our different follower accounts. Now, I'm going to refer to this as the co-main event of the evening, just because I think Stephen Thompson deserves that. But he is currently minus 135 favorite against Vicente Luque, who's plus 115. If the Pettis fight hadn't happened, he would be a much bigger favorite, Thompson, that is. And if the Pettis fight hadn't happened, I would probably be laying a lot of money on Stephen Thompson right now. It worries me that Pettis was able to take him out. I understand Pettis is a sniper. He catches you not looking. All of these things. Thompson was beating Pettis pillar to post, clearly winning. Pettis, who's not a power puncher, nailed Thompson, and Thompson went down. That makes me nervous. Now he's fighting Vicente Luque, who has gone full striker. He stopped incorporating his ground game quite a bit, which used to be fairly impressive, especially how he would incorporate his submissions and his ground and pound. But he's become a very confident striker, all action. But at some point, a coming forward action fighter is kind of perfect for Stephen Thompson because with his karate style, he can kind of like dart in and out and stay away or circle out. And it'd be very frustrating for Luque, who would need to be composed the entire fight to actually pull this off. Unless he catches his chin. Stephen Thompson's chin is gone. But I'm very confident in Stephen Thompson, just as for sure as a pick. And I have had thoughts of adding him in a parlay later for a smaller amount of money. Obviously, he's closer to even money, but having him with a little bit bigger of a favorite later on the card for a smaller amount of money to make maybe a unit. So I'm not risking a lot because I'm a little, like I said, I'm a little worried about Stephen Thompson's chin. But I think it's going to be really hard for Luque to maintain composure for 3 full rounds to get a decision if Thompson's chin still is there. One of the hard things is Thompson's getting into up his mid-upper 30s now, and his entire game is based off speed. That's the darting in and out of karate. It's what happened eventually to Machida. It's just like the speed's not there anymore. The reaction isn't there anymore. Is Thompson there yet? I'm going to say no, but it's going to be coming soon. It's going to come fast. One fight, it's just going to be there. So for a pick, I got Thompson. As of right now, no bet. But like I said, keep an eye on Twitter. That might get added later. Mike, how do you feel about the Wonder Man versus Luque here?
Well, anyone that's listened to you and me and you and I knows that we love us some Luque, and we've not been scared to bet him. I think this is a spot where Stephen Thompson should win. I don't know how Luque could outstrike Stephen Thompson other than Stephen Thompson being a complete sissy and then letting Luque come in and knock his head off like Pettis did. Very possible. I don't trust his chin because he just got murdered in March. That was like 7 months ago, max. It's not a very long time for your brain to repair after the damage he took. So I'm a little worried about that. Vincente Luque's ground game is way better than Stephen Thompson's, so I'm worried about that. I wouldn't bet this fight. I can't trust Thompson. I don't know what Luque is gonna do. If Luque is gonna just do a straight jiu-jitsu wrestling game plan, that's how he's gonna win. I don't know, man. I think he's fallen in love with striking, like you said, and that could be a problem. I like Luque a lot. I hope Luque wins, but I think that Thompson has the skills to beat him.
So you're saying your pick would be Thompson?
Yes.
Sorry, everyone listening, I am slowly trying to keep track of even just the picks me and Mike do on the show, and then after we accrue enough of them, give you guys a little bit of like pick percentage going on so you can see how accurate I know we are. So even though sometimes we don't get a bet right, you'll see that our pick accuracy is pretty on, at least in the main fights of a card. Because obviously I'm not going to say I know everything about some of the preliminary fighters because I haven't delved into them as much as I should. But you know what? I'm going to be confident about the ones I'm confident in, and we're going to show you guys that you got something special listening to right here. So in the actual co-main event of this fight card in New York, this fight card where The Rock is going to be there and put belts on people, where the President of the United States has announced he's going to be there. The co-main event.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it got announced today, man. It's happening. If it'll actually happen, we'll find out. But at least tentatively, that's been announced, which should be very interesting given the people in the main event. But whatever. Okay. Darren Till is a plus 175 underdog against Kelvin Gastelum, minus 210, who's fresh off fighting Israel Adesanya for the interim title. Amazing fight. He almost won until Adesanya came back huge in that late round. Till, on the other hand, is coming off 2 finished losses, a sub by Tyron Woodley, and then getting finished by main eventer Jorge Masvidal. Now, this fight's at 85. Granted, yes, it is against a former fellow 70-pounder, 170, Kelvin Gastelum. But he has now been at 85 for, I think, 2 years now. So he's put on a little bit of weight, the good kind of weight for once for Gastelum. I think this is a very bad first matchup for Till at 85. This whole sink or swim BS that they're doing with Till, they need to cut back on. The dude has a decent amount of star power. And we had this talk when he was going to fight Masvidal. It's why we picked Masvidal, is you have such a meteoric rise and then get knocked down after a title fight where you get destroyed for the most part, and then you get a super tough matchup next. I don't know what they're trying to do to Till. Till might very well win. There's a chance. I doubt he finishes Gastelum because Gastelum has quite a chin on him. But Till's coming off the first big KO loss of his career, and he's going against a heavy-handed Gastelum who will go through the fire to put hands on you. He showed that in the Adesanya fight. So, I mean, I'm picking Gastelum. If he was a little bit lower on the odds, I would bet him for sure. So if some late money comes in on Till, I might be betting Gastelum, or I might find a way to play him. I'm not sure he's going to get the finish or whatever. But you know what? I'm not going to for sure call it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Till missed making 185 too. He's that type of guy where he struggled to make 70 so much that he's going to go up to 85, thinks he could, like, I don't know, bulk up and eat whatever he wants, and he's going to come in at like 189. Like, I don't know, I just feel it.
And if he does, it's going to be because he's mentally weak, and I'm going to for sure be betting Gastelum.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's what we talked about after he went down after the Tyrone fight and why we didn't want him to go against Masvidal, even though we love Masvidal and we thought he was going to beat him. Thought Masvidal was going to beat Till. But, like, talk about, like, making sure that guy doesn't get his confidence back. He loses the title fight and you throw him against Masvidal. And we just thought Masvidal was going to beat him in decision. He just embarrassed the guy and knocked him square out right off the bat. So, I don't know. I guess any further thoughts? I know I kind of waxed a little bit too much on there, but anything further you got for Mr. Liverpool himself versus, I don't know. I keep saying former 70-pounder. I used to give Gastelum a lot of crap, but I'm actually growing quite fond of him. But any thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, I kind of like you. I don't know what they're doing with Till. I don't think they like him very much. They're giving him some pretty shitty matchups after matchup, and so Gastelum's wrestling is amazing. He's got a really, really good chin, and I believe he's a southpaw. So that should cancel out Till's southpaw advantage, and then that make him feel weird anyways. I don't know, man. I like Gastelum a lot. I think that it's more after seeing what Adesanya did to Whitaker, that it makes me more impressed with Gastelum going all the rounds with Adesanya. So I have to pick Gastelum. I think that he could win this and should win this. I think that Darren Till's still a kid. He's kind of cocky and arrogant, and I think maybe the UFC sees the same cockiness, and maybe he popped off to the wrong person, maybe the matchmaker, but someone doesn't like him, and I think that's what's going to happen. But I think Gastelum's going to win here.
Now, in the main event, which this might sound crazy that this is only Jorge Masvidal's second main event fight. Pretty sure that's a statistic I saw. I know this is Nate's 9th main event fight, but Jorge Masvidal is currently the favorite, minus 160. It was a little bit higher earlier in the week. It could get closer. So I'm putting that asterisk on there. As of the last time I checked it, he's minus 160. Versus Nate Diaz, plus 140, who has gone through the ringer, dealing with USADA and who knows what. I know Nate Diaz is mentally strong. If this was anybody else, I would say he might be wavered and lost focus on the fight or something like that. But that's not Jorge Masvidal and that's not Nate Diaz. So moving past all that BS, that's why we're not going to bring it up. We're not going to entertain it because I don't think it pertains to the fight at all. Now, Masvidal has a superior striking, in my opinion, especially because he incorporates leg kicks. He's brought them in the last number of fights, and they're very, very effective. So provided he uses all of his weapons, he can really add up some damage. Because Nate Diaz, although he has started checking leg kicks a little bit, I mean, he did against Pettis a little bit, but he didn't even need to do that to beat Pettis. And I knew that. Go back to the show before we previewed that. We knew that he didn't need to do that to beat Pettis. Nate does have better offensive grappling, and I would say gas tank. But Masvidal has some pretty insane both takedown defense and grappling defense. Like the sheer amount of testicular fortitude it takes to just how much he was able to defend himself against Damian Maia when he fought him. I think he's going to be okay against Nate. I think their jiu-jitsu game is a little bit overblown. They are very, very good, but I think it's overblown a little bit. It's not like some of the guys we've talked about before, even like Maia, where he gets some of these people down and it's insta-tap immediately. That's not the Diaz brothers. Yeah. The gas tank is a real deal. Masvidal doesn't have bad cardio. He did for a little bit, but that was when he was kind of like not fully invested. He's fully invested now. One thing I do slightly worry about in this fight as a whole is round 4 and 5 Diaz, because that's when he starts stringing these long combinations together, and that's really where he starts his output just. And you know me, anyone who listens to this show or the previous show, I'm a big fan of output. So technically by that, you would think I'm going to be all over Diaz here, because usually that's my game. Any guy that's going to consistently put out more output, I'm for.
Me too.
The Diaz output is very much when he's landing and you're not throwing back at him. Or even if you're throwing back at him, you're throwing the typical like boxing returns, not kicks, not showing him a different look or anything like that. And most of those guys are moving straight forward and back. Masvidal is probably the other best boxer in this entire division, maybe even the UFC. And his head movement, and one of the things I love about him, his like little shoulder roll he does while he sidesteps to get out of the way and then re-go into the striking. Diaz goes forward and back, man. He has always gone forward and back, and he's really good when he's going forward. And he can handle going backward, and he actually fights pretty well going backward. It's the side-to-side that screws him. It's why he was able to do so well against Pettis, because Pettis can only move forward and backward, but as soon as Pettis starts moving backward, he can't do anything. That's not Jorge Masvidal. So I'm going a little bit long in the tooth here, because I had mentioned we have 2 big bets on this fight card, and this one is mine. I have a bet on Jorge Masvidal. He's currently minus 160. I have that to win 2 units. So that's 3.2 units down at the minus 160 to win 2. So it's a decent sized bet, but I'm that confident in Cuban Jesus here that fellow Miami, not Miami native, but he attended the University of Miami, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, putting that belt right over his little Miami brother there. And it's going to be a beautiful sight to see, and I just frankly can't wait for it. So that's my bet for this card. I'm just saying it aloud as I write it down next to Mike so we could review this later. So that's to win 2. Mike, I know you love Jorge Masvidal as much as I do, but I really want to hear your take, because I know, and I've admitted to it in the past. That's why probably anybody that knows me was shocked that I was betting Nate Diaz over Pettis. I have underwritten Nate Diaz a lot in the past. Like a lot. Like a lot of times he had his big upsets. I missed. There were some fights in there I hit, but I've come to get a new appreciation for Nate Diaz and just his overall game in the last probably 3 years here. Definitely no longer a hater like I was of him earlier in his career, but I think you got a better judge of Nate Diaz, the fighter, than I do. So I want to hear your take on this fight. How do you feel about this co-main event and the future, possibly only ever owner of the BMF title?
Oh, man, I cannot wait for this fight. This is a treat for all the OG fans who've been here since the beginning of the UFC. I love both these fighters. I'm a fan of both of them. I've been following them since the beginning of their careers. And it's tough for me to pick, but I know, and people are always the first thing they ask me is who you got, and I have Jorge Masvidal. I have Masvidal because I feel like he has the power advantage. He has the kicks advantage, and also has the fact that he wears damage better. Nate has the disadvantage of that he tends to mark easily, cut
Oh,
easily,
that's a
and
good point. That's a really good point.
and he wears damage and he shows damage to the point where I don't know what the judges look for in fights anymore. I used to have a better grasp on it, and now it seems to be changing so much where I don't even quite know anymore. I'm still kind of trying to re-gauge and evaluate my judging criterion system because nothing seems to be what it was. I think that because Nate absorbs a lot of damage, even though he does have the output that you and I love a ton, I think he absorbs a lot of damage. And if he absorbs too much damage, that he could possibly get a cut or a closed eye that could play big into the fight. And so his fourth and fifth round advantage could also be a detriment to his own game and possibly have a cut or an eye that's messed up in the fourth or fifth, causing doctor to stop it or something else. I'm not Nostradamus or Mystic Mac, but that's I could see that happening. The only advantage that I give Diaz is that he has his cardio and his output is he has the highest peak. I I don't know if he can do that versus a boxer just like himself. Pretty much, these are two of the best boxers that I've seen in the game. It's the treat for boxing fans, even if they want to come watch our sport too. So I love this fight. I can't wait for your bet to cash and win. I think that Jorge Masvidal is going to take over the BMF belt and show the whole entire world that he is the street OG legend. There's nobody better than that dude.
That's a really good point. That's even a thing I didn't consider the damage that. Well, I mean both Diaz brothers, but for sure Nate, he cuts so easy. And just one little other side note, just because I have heard a few people state on different podcasts and actually a few articles that Nate Diaz has never been knocked out or finished with strikes. Just a little side note, he has been. Josh Thompson took him out with a leg kick to the head, split him open real bad, and put him down real rough. Not saying anything with Nate Diaz's chins. He just got a great chin. I just wanted to put that little info out there just because I don't know why everyone is forgetting that fight. I know it's been a number of years, but it's still happened. Just wanted to put that out there because I've heard that it's impossible to get Nate Diaz out of there. There's no way that he could be finished. And apparently there's some people that can't remember as far back as the Fox era, which was only a few years ago, but I mean, I understand it lasted for 7 years, but Nate Diaz was a darling of the Fox era, and it happened on there. Not throwing that out there as a last dig at Nate Diaz. Obviously, I think he's pretty phenomenal, especially when put in certain matchups, and I've learned to very much appreciate him in those matchups. That's why, again, thanks to him, he made me a lot of money against Pettis, and here's hoping in the opposite way, he makes me a lot of money against Jorge Masvidal. So with that, we're going to get going. But before we give the ultimate adieu and peace out to all of you, just a quick review of the bets. We have a bet on Gregor Gillespie at minus. Mike got it at 170. It's currently minus 175 to win 2.95 units. With it to 275, that'll probably work out to be just over 5 units. But it's ebbing and flowing, so keep your eye on that. But where Mike got it, it was to win 2.95 units. My bet is on Masvidal at minus 160 to win 2 units. And that's 3.2 units to win 2. So if we have another perfect 2-0 night, we'll be coming back here with just over 5 units won. That'd be just us, not counting any other great stuff going on over the weekend or anything MMA Gangster might have or some of the other contributors to the site. So if you want to check out the site, that's MMAforMoney.com. If you want to check out anybody on the team, all you have to do is search through pretty much any of our retweet history because we're trying to show you guys plenty of people to follow that's got some great info. So going into UFC 244, let's go with something different at the end. How are you going to be taking in UFC 244? Is it going to be sitting in your nice new house that you guys got? Or are you going to meet up with somebody? How are you going to take this fight in?
Oh, I'm gonna be at my new pad, chilling with my buddies and just barbecuing like I do best.
Nice. For me, I have a Halloween party that night. A buddy of mine who's actually the best man at my wedding, who I've been best friends with, going on probably 12 years or more now. They always have a Halloween party the Saturday after Halloween, dress up the whole nine. But I kind of got it in with his brother-in-law, and I think we're going to be he has nice big projection TV, projection screen in the basement. I think we're going to convince a few people to get that going on there. So everyone will be drinking and having fun. And I'll be doing the same, but hopefully in the background I'll be seeing Jorge Masvidal just clean house and see Gregor Gillespie just straight throw Kevin Lee up in the air and dump him on his head. So enjoy these fights, guys. They are going to be awesome. Rate, review, subscribe. I know that's not exactly the turn of phrase strictly for YouTube, but we will be back on iTunes and Stitcher and all those wonderful places soon. We are on 7. We are close, baby. We are close. So again, thanks for listening in, and we will talk to you guys next time. Peace.